Good morning everyone, and welcome to a special tutorial today where I'm going to be teaching you how to paint hands. And real quick before I begin, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm having a 15% off sale at my online shop. The code is SPRING and the sale ends April 7th, and you can check it out at happyd-artist.com. Alright, on to the tutorial. So drawing hands is actually quite complicated, and I'm going to try my best to explain my thought process on drawing and painting hands. They're kind of similar philosophies for both. Yeah, I'm not very good at explaining myself, and I don't think I'm the best tutorial maker, but again, it's been so highly requested, and I'm just going to try my best. So right now, this is a current painting I'm working on, and basically I finished all the other components around the hand, and I'm just starting on the hand right now. I already had my reference photo and sketch done prior to starting the painting. So if you're painting hands, make sure you do a proper outline or under painting or sketch or whatever you have that is the correct proportions and angles of the fingers. But yeah, once you have that done, I just like to start off with the darker areas first, and then gradually go to midtones, and then lastly highlights. One thing that's really important, obviously you have to follow your reference photo, especially if you're not super good at drawing hands. Like, don't guess. Make sure you follow reference photos, but also feel free to consult your own hand. So if you're really confused about how maybe an angle is distorting the fingers, or how the light will bounce off the knuckles, like, just pose your hand in the same pose as your reference and observe it more closely, and it'll help give you an idea of what the anatomy actually looks like. So yeah, it's a lot more useful to look at a hand up close in person and kind of like turn your hand at different angles, just to help you actually know what you're painting, instead of just blindly copying a reference photo without any background information. Also, pay attention to the lighting. It's very important. Just like when you're painting or drawing anything, lighting is the number one most important factor that kind of gives the illusion of realism. So obviously the fingers that are closer to the light source will be illuminated brighter, and things that are farther away from the light source are cast inside of shadows. In this case, like the inside of the palm right now is occluded by the arm, so it's going to be in the shadow. That would be the darkest. So pay attention to those things, otherwise your hand will end up looking very flat. So if you want it to look 3D, make sure you pay attention to the lighting and shadows. And also, one thing about fingers is fingers are not perfectly round cylinders, and this is a mistake that I had made a lot when I started drawing and painting hands, is I would assume that fingers are shaped like long cylinders, and they're actually more like rectangular prisms. So instead of being perfectly round, they kind of have like a flatness at the top. So when you're painting it, you have to make sure that your shadows don't overblend your shadows to make like a cylindrical gradient. You almost want kind of like a harsh edge where the shadow meets the midtone or the shadow meets the highlight, because your fingers are shaped like rectangular prisms and not cylinders. And also, like, between each finger, you might assume that like between each finger there's a really harsh dark shadow, and actually it's not really true. Again, it's like it's hard to explain, but if you take a look at your hand, you'll notice that, especially if you turn your hand at an angle, sometimes instead of forcing a dark shadow because two fingers are pressed together, sometimes your fingers just kind of overlay each other and occlude each other. So when two fingers are not actually pressed firmly together, they won't create a shadow. So in my current hand that I'm doing now, the fingers are very tenderly placed against the arm, and she's not putting any pressure and not compressing any of the fingers together. So the only shadows cast by the fingers is the shadow created by the first foreground finger, occluding the light from hitting the second background finger. So therefore the shadow will be very soft and lighter in value rather than a super dark shadow. I noticed, like, if you paint shadows that are way too dark in between the fingers, it gives this feeling of like like almost like the person clenching their hand, and it doesn't seem realistic. It seems way too harsh. It doesn't seem pretty or elegant. So don't overdo it with the shadows in between the fingers. You'll notice that the darkest part of the hand, of course this will vary depending on what reference you use, but based on my current reference photo, the harshest shadows, the darkest shadows are actually where the fingers touch the arm and where the inside of the palm is being covered by the arm. So again, it's like you kind of have to almost look at it from a very mathematical perspective. Like it's almost like a matter of physics and lighting. So yeah, don't just blindly follow your reference photo. Kind of use a little bit of logic and common sense when you're deciding where to put the lighting. I think with hands especially, it's a lot of lighting tricks and how, like, even if you make a shadow slightly darker than it's supposed to be, it could throw off your entire hand. So it's really, really important to get the lighting perfect and to make sure you kind of understand the entire context of where the hand is in relation to like what the hand is touching, what the hand is hiding behind, what the hand is in front of. This is all very important. And also, there's one thing you'll notice that I made the tips of the fingers very pink. I think in general, I notice when I'm observing real hands, the tips of the fingers do tend to be a little more pink. I really exaggerated in mine because that's just my personal style. So you don't have to exaggerate yours as intensely as mine. Mine almost looks like she dipped the tips of her fingers in some pink powder or something. But yeah, if you are looking to add some variety to your hand, you'll notice that the parts that are fleshier and less bony are a little bit more pink. So whether it be like kind of the bottom of the palm where the palm meets the wrist, there's like a nice cushion of flesh there, that should be pinker, and then the tips of the fingers are also fleshier and should be a little bit more pink. And also, I don't really paint nails. That's just another personal style preference. But yeah, like if you, like again, you don't have to follow my tutorials so closely. And I encourage you guys to not follow my tutorials so super closely, to actually just use the tips that I give you and apply those philosophies when you're doing your own pieces. So just because I don't paint nails doesn't mean you cannot paint nails. In fact, I am thinking about maybe starting to paint nails more, just because it adds some extra texture and dimension to the hand and makes it look more interesting. But yeah, for now, you'll see on this piece, I'm purposely excluding the nails. And here I'm working on my second layer of the hand. I'm just kind of going back and refining the shape. I think the ring finger looks a little too slim, and yeah, like it doesn't hurt to keep refining your hands. That being said, don't overpaint the hands. Sometimes a mistake I noticed I made is my hand will actually look pretty fine and pretty okay, and then I'll go back and keep trying to perfect it, and then I'll mess it up and keep trying to redo it, and then I end up just with this huge mess. So if your hand is already looking good and you're satisfied with it, don't force yourself to paint a second or third layer just for the sake of painting more layers. Like, I know with oil painting especially, you have almost this like stigma against like not using enough layers, but I think if you're just starting out and you're a beginner, really do not force yourself to paint over something that already looks good. You can just kind of refine it and glaze with light transparent layers just to make things pop or make things smoother, but don't feel the need to like repaint the entire hand as a completely new layer. And also with highlights, be careful and don't put too many highlights. I know like it's really easy to overdo the highlights because they're such a fun part and it's such a fun like finishing touch to polish up the piece. But when you put a highlight that's too harsh, it really elevates whatever the highlight is on. So especially for things like knuckles or the joints of your hand, if you put a highlight that's too white, it'll make that area jet out so unnaturally. And also with wrinkles, like I have a little bit of a wrinkle underneath the pinky where it's bent. Wrinkles should be done very softly and gently. You shouldn't make the wrinkle the same darkness as a shadow. It'll just look way too harsh and unelegant. So in general, the hands are very soft, delicate features, and so when you do like little things like wrinkles or knuckles or highlights, just be very tender and do it sparingly. See, like right now I just blurred out that wrinkle just because it looked kind of harsh. And that's about it. Sorry if this tutorial wasn't useful, but if you found it useful, I'm really glad. I tried my best. I'm not always the most eloquent speaker. And for a real-time version of this video where you can get a closer look at my technique, along with other fun daily rewards, coloring challenges, free prints, check out patreon.com/happydartist. And until next time, have a great day. Bye!